Tustin Area Historical Society is proud and honored to be in the home of Mr. Don Marsh for an interview, and his daughter, Donna Marsh Perry, is here with us too. And we're going to discuss his lifetime before he came to Tustin and the 54 years that he's been here since he moved to Tustin. Don is a war hero of what's been called the Battle of the Bulge, and it's very appropriate that 3 days ago was the 75th anniversary of Hitler's strike and his attempt to break through the Allied lines and capture Antwerp and have a big breakthrough and change the tide of World War II. And thanks to people like Don, he was unable to do that. It's called the Battle of the Bulge because they did penetrate 35 miles into the line and created a bulge. So it's been called the Battle of the Bulge. And Don was one of those brave Americans that was there during that important time in history, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, Don, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you happened to wind up in the Army.
I was born in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and just south of Milwaukee. And I was raised in Racine, Wisconsin, which was north of Kenosha, because my father got out of the Army in World War I and became a police officer in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Then the family moved to Racine, and I grew up, my whole childhood was spent in Racine, Wisconsin. I graduated from high school, Horlick High School there, 1941. And of course, the war came along, and the proper thing was to wait to be drafted or enlisted. So I enlisted December 2nd, 1942, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And
where'd they send you for boot camp?
The initial stop was Fort Sheridan, Illinois, where we got our shots and everything. And they sent me down to Camp Crowder, Missouri. It was based on aptitude tests, I guess. In high school, I'd taken an electronic course. I knew something about ohms and AC and DC and direct current, what have you. So I did well on it, on that part of the test. So they sent me down to Camp Crowder for the basic training.
And then after that, did they send you right to Europe, or more training before that?
No, there was no training after that. Well, there was subsequent training, yeah. They sent me to become a pole lineman, wireman, and then from there they sent me to Pennsylvania to be shipped overseas. So I shipped overseas in October of 1943, arrived in Scotland, and then I was transferred to a replacement depot in England. And from there I was sent to the 3rd Armored Division as a replacement. But then the 2nd Armored was picked for the invasion of France because of their experience in North Africa and Sicily. So they transferred me from the 3rd Armored Division to the 2nd Armored Division for the landing in Normandy. And we landed D+3 on June 9th, Omaha Red Beach. And I was with Combat Command A of the 2nd Armored Division then, all the way through the war.
Wow. And who was the commanding general then?
General Maurice Rose.
Maurice Rose.
Yeah, of which I was co-author of a book about him, wrote his biography.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question about that later, but I know that that was one of the things you're well known for.
Yeah.
And you were stationed where at the time the Battle of the Bulge started, near Bastogne, or?
Well, no. We at the time the Battle of the Bulge began, December 16th, 44. We were the 2nd Armored stationed in Germany, and 2 days after the war in Belgium started, the brass, Bradley and the rest of them finally woke up and said, "This is not just a trial. This is genuine, a real breakthrough." So they transferred our whole division, 17,000 men, from Germany to Belgium to stop the deepest penetration. We were sent to the area called Cells, C-E-L-L-E-S, and that was the deepest western penetration of the German attack. And when we caught the German 2nd Panzer Division in the pocket, and our division annihilated them.
Wow.
We knocked out 102 tanks and self-propelled armored weapons, big guns. And we captured and killed, they said 4,500, but the rest of their division fled back to Germany and they escaped. But we had captured also and killed staff officers.
Wow. I've heard that the winter then was the coldest on record.
Growing up in Wisconsin on the Lake Michigan, I was used to cold weather, but I never in my life experienced anything that cold. I just totally froze my fingers, my feet. We didn't have adequate winter clothing. We didn't have boots. We just had normal winter, fall tank jacket and army pants.
Frostbite was a big problem.
Yes, it was.
Your daughter just went to a game in Green Bay, and I think she knows a little bit about what you
Not as cold as he was there.
Yeah.
What was the game, the Green Bay game temperature?
Kickoff was 16, and
Six-
it dipped down to 10 during the game.
Oh,
12 at halftime and got a little colder in the afternoon.
you experienced a lot of 10 degrees
Yeah.
and probably lower. That's just amazing. Tell us a little bit about General Rose.
General Rose, grew up. His parents were Jewish, but when he grew older, he became apostate. He fell away from his religion. On your dog tags, you can put no preference. He didn't have anything on his dog tags. When I did the research on his biography, I found his dog tags. There was no marking of H on there for Hebrew. And there was always a controversy over that, because the rabbis always said he wanted a Star of David placed over his grave there in Holland, and the Christians wanted to cross. So it came down to a question by the government. They asked his wife, what do you believe he was in his mind, and where do you want him buried? She said, I want him buried with his troops there in Holland, and I want a Christian cross, because she was Episcopalian. Now, when they married, he couldn't marry her in the synagogue, and she couldn't marry him. She was a Mormon. So they got married by justice of the peace. But they had a couple of children. But that's all in the book. It was explained.
Tell us a little bit about your inspiration to write this book.
The country over, well, I admired General Rose for what, he was a practical man. He knew that he was going to lose troops, and he kept it to a minimum. And he was always there with us. He was a frontline commander. That's what got him killed. He didn't command for the back in his division headquarters.
Which many generals did.
Yes. I'd have to say he was not only brave, but he wasn't cautious enough for his work to put himself in jeopardy. But when the chips were down, he was there.
And the enemy always looks for high-ranking people to pick off,
Well,
of course.
when he ran into a 60-ton tank, and he was in a Jeep, so there was no contest. And the tank just pushed him right into a plum tree. I communicated with his driver, Glenn Shantz from Minnesota, after the war was over, and he gave me all the details of when they sort of stopped and put their hands in the air. But
When did you publish this book?
2003,
2003.
yeah. It's still available on Amazon.com.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So our viewers can order that book if they'd like. Did this book get into his entire life, or just focused on the battle?
No, I took it from the time he was born back in Connecticut. And the family moved to Denver, and he grew up there. Like I said, his father was a rabbi, grandfather's a rabbi, and he did the bar mitzvah when he was 13. And he had a younger brother named Arnold, but that was all in the family. He did well in high school, but he was not exceptional. And in doing the research, someone had told us he was a valedictorian of the class, but that was not true. I checked it out in high school, and it said no. However, when he enlisted in the Army in World War I, and he was wounded. When you're wounded in the Army, you give your name, your rank, your serial number, and your religion of preference. At that time, in World War I, they said, what's your religion of preference? He said, Protestant. Later, when he went to the hospital at a different time in his life, he said he was Methodist. And he went through all the different religions until he never once said he was Catholic. Maybe if he'd lived long enough, he might have claimed he was. I don't know.
Well, Don, where were you on VE Day when the war ended? In Germany?
I was in Germany, and I was with the 9th Army at the time. And we were up on the Elbe River, and it was just, we knew that they didn't have anything left. So we kept saying, why are they fighting? There's nothing left for them to fight over. The country, we had captured everything in the country was worth capturing. We had surrounded over 300,000 troops in a pocket. And they wanted to surrender, I guess, but they were afraid the SS would kill them if they tried to surrender. And that was the problem. We were in northern Germany, on the Elbe.
The Elbe River. And what happened to you after VE Day? Did you come back pretty quickly to the States?
No, that was another problem. We were sent to Wolfenbüttel to cool down and collect everything. And then we were anxious to get home, and then they set up a point system. You got so many points for overseas, so 1 point for every month you spent in the States, 2 points for every month you spent overseas. You got 5 points for any award you got, battle award or anything. And then the guys that had 85 points got priority, they were sent home first. And from there they sent us down to Marseille, France, to wait shipment home. And then we finally caught a Liberty ship shipped out of Le Havre, France, and I arrived in Boston, Massachusetts, Fort Evans, Mass, for processing. There they processed and sent us to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, where I was discharged.
And then when your enlistment was up, I understand you changed
When my enlistment was up,
to the Air Force.
I was discharged in civilian for a while, and I got acquainted with a recruiting sergeant because they couldn't find enough men to attend these services of men that died in the Army. And I volunteered as Veterans in Foreign War. And I found out there was an opening in military 5012 AS Army Service Unit returning to war dead as a military escort. And I signed for that for 3 years. And I returned to war dead practically every week.
That's quite a job.
Yeah, it was very emotional because almost without fail, every family would start to say, pleased to meet you. And then they say, were you with, meaning their next of kin or husband? No, I was not with him when he died or got killed. And it was very emotional. We had some men that could go out on the first trip and they couldn't take it anymore. Paratroopers.
And you did it for 3 years.
Yeah, tough guys. And I had hot weather, Mississippi, cold weather in Minot, North Dakota, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Detroit, Michigan. I brought home 7 men from my hometown.
Wow.
7 men. I didn't know, I knew 2 personally, but I didn't know the rest personally. I knew the families.
Quite a job.
Oh, terrible. Somebody had to do it. But it was very emotional.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very proud of you for doing that. That's just a real accomplishment.
Well, it was so tough. I couldn't get bugler for taps. So I'd go down to the VFW club and I'd ask, I needed somebody to blow a bugle in every town. I need a volunteer to blow the bugle for taps. It's the least you can do for these guys. And today the Army doesn't even have buglers. They have a little musical box. And it sounds just like a regular bugle plane. They'll do that at the national cemeteries. Except, there's one difference. Out at Riverside National Cemetery, that's what they do for Army, Air Force, whatever. But if it's a Marine They get a Marine from Camp Pendleton to come out with a bugle. They give him the full honor. I gotta respect them for
That's
that.
good. Now, when that enlistment ran out, you had an opportunity to switch forces, right? To the
Yeah,
Air
right.
Force?
I had played in sports against Air Force team from Fort Sheridan. I played on the softball team. And through the team members, I found out there was an opening at O'Hare Field. So I interviewed with a warrant officer, Jack K. Snyder. And he said, I met what he wanted, so a guy to run his sports program. So I took over the base gymnasium there at O'Hare Field.
And you remained in the Air Force for the
14
time
years.
it took to be completely retired.
Yeah,
14
right.
years.
Different assignments. When I left there, I went to Bunker Hill, Indiana. And from Bunker Hill, they sent me to London, England, headquarters of the Air Force, with the family. And from there, after we were there in England a little over a year, they transferred me to 17th Air Force in Wiesbaden, Germany. And I stayed there until the full tour. And I had a year to go on my enlistment. They couldn't promote me because there was no place to move up. Everything was filled. So they awarded me the Air Force Meritorious Service Medal, which they normally give to field grade officers as a thank you, you know. But they gave me the medal and I appreciated that. And they sent me to Florida. I spent a year in Florida as a short timer. Played a lot of golf.
Now, Donna, when did you come along? Did you get to live in?
Well, they were with me.
So you lived in London for a while?
I did. I started first grade in England, so I was 6 years
Wow.
old when we got over there. So
First grade.
ages 6 through 10, we were in Europe.
Wow. That's quite an
It's
experience.
a great way to grow up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you retain any of those languages or did you even learn them at the time?
Oh, we were required to learn them. I had French, I had German, I think I had some Spanish, and then we moved. Then my dad got out and we
Can you
retired.
still handle any of those languages?
No, I'm taking Italian now, but can't do the rest of them. I had 6 years of German, so I did okay in German.
Could you still speak it today?
I probably couldn't put full sentences together, but I could
Wow.
understand a little bit of it.
Wow. That's just great.
Nix sprechen Sie Deutsch.
And after that, I understand you went into sales.
I came out to California because I asked my wife, where do you want to go? And she said, let's go to California. So we left Florida, came to California, and my sister-in-law had rented a house for us in Garden Grove. So we got furniture settled in, and we settled in Garden Grove. And then my wife found this house through the newspaper ads. At the time, it was all orange groves. Everything was Tustin area. And she picked this house. I said, fine. But I had a job with a national sales company, Lear Manufacturing of Wisconsin. And instead of being a Western salesman, I became a Western sales manager for the 11 states of the West.
11 states.
11 states,
Wow.
including Hawaii.
So you did quite a bit of travel. I bet.
Yes, I did. She used to take me to Disneyland Hotel on Sunday, and I'd fly a helicopter to the LAX base, catch an airplane Sunday night to wherever I was going, whether it was Phoenix or whatever. I'd be in position on Monday morning where I'd go instead of traveling. But then I'd come home on Thursday night, get my records, and relax, prepare for the following week.
So you've been here in this house since 1966.
So it's in this house, right. When we moved here, it was all level land.
54 years.
Yeah,
And Donnie, you graduated from Tustin High?
I did. Went to middle school when we moved here, and then graduated from Tustin High in 1972.
Middle school. And
so did my son Gary. But Judy graduated from Garden Grove, right?
Yeah, Leakington, Garden Grove.
Yeah, I had 3 children, Judy, Donna, and Gary.
When we moved here, I thought he had taken us to the ends of the earth. Like I said, there was nothing in Tustin in 1966, and
Yeah,
thought he's done it to us now.
yeah,
what was the population then?
Oh gosh, 30,000 maybe. Steve, do you know?
I like to say 37,
66.
I don't know why, but I think with all this 37,000 stayed in my mind.
Yeah.
But then it grew, it got to be big, 53,000.
This was their first house. I think they paid 21,000 for
I
it.
paid 29,900 for this
29.
one, yeah. And you could buy an empty swimming pool for that now.
Yeah, you couldn't even buy the land.
No.
No, no.
And when did you retire?
When did I retire? I think it was 72 or 74 when I finally, I got tired of traveling. And pay was okay, but it just got burned out, I guess.
So I've had the pleasure in the past of seeing your man cave, so at some point you must have spent an awful lot of time doing research on the things you wanted to write about.
That was the strange part about writing about General Rose, is that every time I got involved with it, well, for example, I called a newspaper editor that had been served with the Second Army during the war. And I said, I'm trying to write a biography as a general, what I knew about him. And he said, did you find his son? I said, no, he had a son. He said, oh yeah, he had a son in Texas. So I said, do you know where? He said, no, but if you try Bexar County, you'd probably find out. So I inquired around with the Tustin Police Department, and they said, yeah, call the Sheriff's Department. So I called the Sheriff's Department in Texas, Bexar County, and I said, do you have a Maurice Rose there? They said, we used to have him, but not anymore. I said, where's he now? I said, he's the chief of police at San Antonio Airport. I said, wow. So that took me on another journey. So I called the San Antonio Airport, asked for the chief of police. And I got this big gruff guy. He said, hello, this is Maurice Rose, chief. Who are you? No, who the hell are you? And I said, I'm Don Marsh out in California. So what do you want with me? I was writing a biography on your father. I said, stop right there. I don't get into that stuff. And I said, well, this is complimentary on the gentleman. I served with him. And then we softened up a little bit. We made friends. And he helped me a little bit. In his conversation, he said, have you found my other brother? I said, no, what, another mystery? Where do I find him? Turns out he was a half-brother by the father's first marriage. So I get on that, and I asked my son, who was working for a newspaper at the time, in San Jose. I said, Gary, how do I find the mother? She was a Mormon. He said, oh, call Salt Lake City, call Desiree's funeral home, and they have all the Mormons buried there on record. So I called Salt Lake City and I said, do you have this lady's name? Yes, she's buried here. I said, can you tell me when she died? They told me when she died. Where did she die? In Salt Lake City? No, she died in Walla Walla, Washington. Here I go on another trial. And I'm asking Donna to help me on the internet. I don't know anything about it. I didn't own a computer at the time. So we get a hold, Gary gets a hold of the Walla Walla newspaper obituary columnist, and they read to him that she died there in such and such a date, survived by his son, Maurice Rose, Major, Marine Corps. Same name, different guy. So now what do I do? So I call a friend of mine in the Pentagon, and he says, well, you write a letter to the United States Marine Corps, address it to him by name. If he's deceased, they'll mark it in red, deceased, and send it back to you. If he's still alive, they'll forward it to him. Well, time went by, maybe a month or two, and the letter came back. I said, oh my. But on the outside of the letter, it said, moved, left no forwarding address, Fallbrook, California. That's the back gate of Camp Pendleton. So I said to my wife, get in the car, we're going to Fallbrook. We went down to Fallbrook, went to this address. Sure enough, it was up on the hill, nice home. Was for sale. Nobody there. So I went to the neighbor next door and asked about the people. I said, oh yeah, their home was for sale. But she's gone, so they split up. He's probably in Oceanside, California. I don't know, where am I going to find him? So I said, here's my card. And if you talk to either one, give them my card and my phone number, tell them I'd like to call them. Turned out it was Christmas Eve that year. I get a call. It's from the other guy, the retired Marine. And when I tell him what I'm doing, he said, thank you, I'm not interested in that family. Turns out, make a long story short, that he and his mother were with their father he had gone back in the Army after World War One as a ROTC instructor, and they sent him to Fort Benning, Georgia. And Fort Benning, Georgia, they had a lot of vacancies for his rank, but they said he could go to Panama, for example, but no dependents can accompany him. So he made a decision. He said, take the kid and your, quote, take the kid and yourself, go back to Salt Lake City, let the Mormons feed you. I'm married to the Army. And he got the assignment in Panama. That's where he met his second wife. It was all a strange tale.
You spent an awful lot of time researching this thing.
And I didn't have a computer. I had a typewriter.
But you had Donna.
Donna comes over with a laptop. She says, try this. I said, out of my style, she said, try it. I got hooked on it. But in the meantime, I was typing, sending letters to people in Germany, talking to the Germans that killed General Rose. But they wouldn't own up to it. To this day, they never owned up. No, they know that they killed him, but they would not finger the shooter. They would not say who's, and I suspect it's one guy, but Wolf called him in, but all hearsay. So
Well, you did an awful lot of research.
oh yeah, well,
How many years do you think it took you to do before you started writing the book?
4 or 5,
4 or 5 years?
yeah. Well, I was trying to find material that was factual, not hearsay. There's a lot of hearsay out there.
My brother and I spent a lot of time helping my dad, and that's all we talked about for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah,
That's all we talked about for years.
And it was published in 02,
03.
03.
Yeah, and there was another thing. I met this other gentleman who was doing research because he's Jewish. He was proud of that. Somebody at the time it was a war hero, and he was doing research on him. And on the internet, our information exchanged through the central source, 3rd Armored Division, which is still on the internet. That I wrote, he wrote. And so he called me and said, why don't we combine? And he came down he was living in San Francisco. So he came down, we got together, and we put our minds together. He was very helpful finding an agent, because today you can't get a book published without an agent. We hired an agent in New York, Mary Pantano. She went to 26 different publishers, national publishers. Basically, they all said the same thing. Well-researched, well-written, unknown general, won't sell. They only said, who's going to buy their book?
They thought the market was limited as opposed to Eisenhower and MacArthur.
Right. So
Patton and people
she
like that.
found one publisher, and they said, we'll take it on, but they didn't give us a dime in advance, nothing. They didn't even help us with expenses, publicize the book.
Hmm,
So we did it on our own, but with her help.
courageous.
And Taylor Publishing published the book for us. And then they got to the point where the book sales slowed down, and I said, how many copies you got left there? And they said, we don't have any copies left, and we're not thinking about republishing it. I said, then read the contract, I get the rights back. If you stop publishing, I get the rights to the book back. They said, what are you going to do with that? I said, self-publish. That scared them. I said, okay, we'll keep a number of copies on hand. And to this day, we had that agreement.
And it's for sale on Amazon.
Yeah, I think it's $18, not down to that. Yeah.
That's great. Donna, tell us a little bit about your trips to Europe because of your dad's importance in the war.
Well, this last May, I went to Margraten National Cemetery in Margraten. And what was interesting is I met her in the Belgian airport, was Audra Rose Kite, who's the granddaughter of General Rose.
Oh.
And the two of us made our way from Belgium to Margraten. We stayed in a town called Valkenburg. What's wonderful about Margraten is they've, since the war, have adopted every single one of the 10,000 graves that are there.
Yeah.
So they consider them to be their soldiers. They find out as much as they can researching who the young man was, finding a photo, emailing and talking to the families. And they remember those soldiers on every holiday, their birthday, Christmas, and Memorial Day. So I was there for the Memorial Day ceremony, which was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Mm.
It's an incredible story, and I wish the people here saw the patriotism and the love that they have for the Americans there. They're liberators. I also had the opportunity to go to Brunsum, which is where my dad liberated with the 2nd Armored Division. And throughout the city of Brunsum, there's all sorts of memorials and plaques remembering and thanking their liberators.
Yeah.
That's just great.
And the thing about Margroton Cemetery, back then, there's a waiting list to adopt, each grave is adopted, American grave is adopted. There were, at the time, to start was 19,000 there, but it's been reduced since they bring in bodies home. And to this day, each grave is, American grave is adopted by a family over there.
And they pass that on from generation to generation. That's something
I was
they're
about
very
to
proud
ask-
of.
I was about to ask what happens when your dad's generation dies off. It's going to go down.
It's a possibility to go down, but there is also a waiting list to get someone that comes up available for adoption.
Oh.
But that's something that they share in their families, that they're very proud to say, I want my grandson to take care of this grave.
Yeah.
I met a lady named Kathy from Washington, and they're on their 5th generation of adopting that grave.
Wow.
So they're in communication with 4 other generations in the Netherlands of people on both sides that have passed their uncle down.
And in the back of that grave are German graves. So there are German soldiers buried there too.
Must
Not
have been-
many,
There were a lot of Germans killed in that.
yeah, but they didn't return anybody home. They buried them where they had small German cemeteries scattered all over. But there are no Americans buried in Germany.
I wonder if that sentiment exists in France. I wouldn't know myself, but
You know, I don't know that it exists in France, but as you know, I'm very involved with the Tustin soldiers that fell during the war, and there is a
Yeah.
Tustin soldier, Private Yoppp, Y-O-P-P, and he's buried in France. And when I wrote to France to find out if they had an adoption program, they did not, but they did go out and put flowers at the grave for him. So again, they don't necessarily have an adoption program, but they have the same sentiment of appreciating their liberators and the ultimate sacrifice that they paid.
it'll be interesting over the years, and we may all be gone, but it'll be interesting to
Yeah.
know how we're regarded in 40 or 50 years.
It was nice of them
That's
to
nice
honor
hear.
General Rose's grave there.
There's actually an elementary school in Margroton called the Maurice Rose Elementary School.
Really?
And, it was interesting that you shared the story about MacArthur Junior High. They teach these kids from 1st grade on who General Rose was.
Yeah,
And they've adopted his grave. So again, they walked out in bulk in class, the entire class, to go present flowers on his grave. They definitely know who Maurice Rose is.
oh yeah.
That's good.
Now, when Donna went over with Audra took, she said, I'd like to bring a gift to the school. And she brought a registration book,
His guest book, the General's guest book, and
Wait.
presented that to the school.
all the VIPs that came in there and registered in the guest book, different generals and dignitaries, they gave this book, it's an artifact, they gave this book to the school.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Great.
I'm glad of that.
Well, this has just been a most interesting conversation, Don. You had such an important part of one of the most important battles in American history,
Yeah,
and I've spent years and years doing research on it, and
Right.
published a book in a courageous fashion at your own expense to get it started. So
yeah.
that's just an amazing thing. And Don, it's wonderful that you were able to help him with technology.
Yeah, yeah. Well, without Donna, I couldn't have made it. Really. Well, there's nobody here, you know. I got an older daughter, but she's out of town, and her son's up north. And she's got the technical ability.
I'm
which
familiar with Donna's skills. She can do anything she sets her mind to.
Yeah.
It is always entertaining to teach a senior how to use a laptop, though.
And in the post-war years, I received a medal about a year ago in July from France. It's a liberation medal. Actually, they call it the French Legion of Honor.
Mm.
And it's 74 years later. And I had already received one from the Netherlands, from Holland. They call it Liberation Medal as well.
Well, Don, I know that it's been 75 years since that thing started, and from what I've read, it constituted 10% of all American casualties in all of World War II. And that the original 100,000 U.S. soldiers, the Germans had double that amount.
Oh, yeah.
They were augmented quickly with 600,000 more fighting troops and 400,000 backup people that it takes to run an army. and it turned out to be a defensive battle. So in the history books, everybody remembers D-Day
Yeah.
and the invasion of France, which was offense. Defense isn't as well known, but it was one of the most important, significant battles
Yeah.
of the war. So
Well,
we're-
to me, Battle of Bulge is like the 4th of July, remember, and also December 7th. That's important dates in my mind for military.
Well, we certainly enjoyed this chance to find out more about your experiences, and it's been wonderful. And we thank you very much, sir, for your time, and you too, Donna.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for my government pension. See, I make everybody laugh, but I mean it sincerely. I could be with the cap on. People without the cap, people wouldn't even say hello to me. But with the cap on, they say, "Oh, he's a World War II veteran," and he said, "Thank you for your service." And I look at him, I said, "And thank you for my government pension."
Good for you.
And I mean it sincerely. I was in Benji's, and a gentleman in a white shirt came in to pick up his package. He was taken out, and he professional man in a white shirt on, necktie, and he stopped and said, and I said the same thing. I said, "Thank you for my military pension." He said, "That's where my taxes go." Good.
Well, when you're having the 75th anniversary of something that you had to be over 18 to be there, that means that most of your peers have passed away.
Yeah.
And,
Right. I'm the only
so-
one surviving from my unit.
And I'm not surprised at that, and we're delighted that you still have all your mental faculties. You have a great memory.
Well, I'm fortunate. I'm blessed and I'm cursed in that regard. Because I sit here alone many days and many nights. I can't think about the future, so I have to think about the past. And I have a lot of good memories.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, once again, we're thoroughly delighted, and I want to tell the viewer that our wonderful editor is going to take some still shots of Don's man cave, where he has certificate after certificate after certificate, and that'll all be available on our video. So.
Oh, you want to look at my war room?
Yes.
Good.
So, thank you very much for doing all that, Steve, and
You're
that will
welcome.
conclude our interview.
I'm honored, actually.
I hope you got it all.
I got it all.